Notice my whole box of Shelleys is pretty much empty. I'll talk about this later on. Over the last couple of weeks, I've shown this box and it was full of little green Shelleys, little Dimmer 2 Shelleys. It is now full of 3 Shelleys. So somewhere, according to my Wi-Fi, when I have a look at it here, somewhere throughout the house we have about 24 Shelleys broadcasting SSIDs. And my trick today is to go through and figure out, well, first of all, join them all to the network, then figure out which ones are which, and then join the Home Assistant, and then set up, it's going to go on and on. G'day, Aaron. Thanks for joining. I'll come back to the Shelleys. Oh. It's been a busy week. The first thing on the agenda, in fact, I'm going to try and make this faster today because I started half an hour later because I got caught up in other things indirectly related to the Shelleys. Maybe by the time I get to the Shelleys, it would have calmed down enough to talk about it. Yeah. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's talk about more upbeat stuff. This week, I've been in Sydney, and it was a very, very short trip. I just had a night in Sydney. Had Wednesday night in Sydney, and it's because it's because of a couple of things. But one of them was I got an invite to talk to Dr. Karl. Now, if you're not from Australia, you probably do not know who Dr. Karl is. Maybe if you're a younger Australian, you don't know as well. I don't know. But Dr. Karl is one of these very recognizable persons. You know how wherever you are in the world, there are probably a bunch of people who are very recognizable personalities in your country, and maybe outside of there, they're not like A-list celebrities or something like that. Anyway, Dr. Karl is one of these guys. I'm sure that even for me growing up as a kid, I would see on the TV a lot talking about science. And let me find the proper bio. Dr. Karl. Oh, my keyboard response. Someone find an answer for this for me. I have a Bluetooth keyboard, one of these Microsoft ones. And since forever, it sort of goes to sleep. Right? Like if it hasn't had much interaction for a while, it'll go to sleep because I've been away from the keyboard. I've been downstairs. I came up and I used the mouse to start this. And then eventually it'll wake up. And it normally takes a few seconds before it wakes up. But this week, I'm here writing the codes. And I'm literally like halfway through writing something. And it just stops. And I'm like, okay, well, has the PC crashed? That's annoying. Oh, the mouse doesn't work either. All right, so has the Bluetooth crashed? Get an external keyboard and mouse or with cables, plug them in, it's all fine. And it turns out the Bluetooth adapter, now this is really screwed, the Bluetooth adapter built into the PC, or it's a separate card. But anyway, the Bluetooth adapter in the PC appears to have completely died. It's dropped off Device Manager, can't resurrect it, pull the thing out, literally pull the PC out, unseat the card, put the card back in. Nothing comes back up. Drivers and everything are fine. And the fact that it died like just right in the middle of doing something, not an update or anything. So I go and get an external Bluetooth dongle because I figure that's like the path of least resistance. Everything comes back up, good to go. But now when this thing goes to sleep, it takes forever to come back up. And I have a bit of a feeling it might be related to the dongle being behind the PC through several layers of fairly solid desk. So maybe it's an RF thing. But the mouse works well. That's what I don't understand. Maybe I need to get a new keyboard. Ooh, upgrade. Anywho, where were we? Dr. Karl. I can't type it in at the moment because my keyboard's not responding. Oh, no, now it's responding. Ah, Dr. Karl. All right. Where were we? Aaron, how do you find developing on Windows? Oh, productive. That's how I find it. So Dr. Karl is now, where is he? He's born in 48. Yeah, he's the same age as my father. But he is, what's his actual qualifications? He's like proper doctor, science doctor. Jeez, I don't know what I'm talking about, do I? Education. Television titles, science career after graduating from university at 19. Wow. Took a job as a physicist. So his office is at the School of Physics in the University of Sydney. He designed machines to test the strength of steel made for use in Melbourne's Westgate Bridge. Oh, it was under construction at the time. Anyway, Then he worked for an ophthalmologist. He has a Master of Biomedical Engineering degree. Anyway, all this sorts of stuff. But he's just very charismatic, very energetic, a little bit eccentric. I think he'd be okay with me saying that. Very, very colourful shirts and very recognisable character. Been on loads of TV shows, written lots of books and things. There's a podcast he does that we have often listened to on long road trips with the kids in very recent years, where someone will call up and ask about the most bizarre thing related to physics or science or health, and he'll have these like wild answers. And I'm pretty sure a lot of it is off the top of his head as well. He certainly researches some of it. Yeah, just super cool, interesting guy. And I got an invitation to go down to Sydney and talk on his podcast about the cyber things, data breaches. Now, I didn't realize this, but apparently there was an article in American Scientific in late last year, September maybe last year, that had a bunch of stuff about data breaches and have I been pwned myself. And he was reading off that. So anyway, that's what we did. We went down and had this meeting. And I think what strikes me is in the recent years of my career, I've met some really interesting people. Some people that I have long revered in either cybersecurity, software development, technology. And I got to be honest, a lot of them, not that nice. I'm not going to say who, but if ever you and I are out there having some beers, I'll tell you who, and I'll tell you why. Some of them are absolute shockers. A bunch of them are just weird. Plenty of them are like, now I'm a bit disappointed afterward. But not Dr. Karl. Dr. Karl was awesome. He was so lovely. He was just such a really, really nice guy. And we had a really, really fun time. Definitely very eccentric. But he has an office there in this school of physics. And yeah, it was just good vibes. It all felt good, which was great. So we did that, spent a bit of time with our friends at the AFP, the Australian Federal Police, who are doing some really, really cool stuff with everything from, I guess, helping protect us Aussies and by extension most of the rest of the world as well. The AFP works very closely with the likes of the NCA in the UK and the FBI in the US. Also had a lot of discussion around things like youth prevention of crime in the cyberspace, because that's a big thing. A lot of the data breaches and so on we see are from kids. They're from very often 14 or 15-year-olds. I was having a discussion with someone the other day who was passing around data, and at one point they said they were 14, and take them at their word, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think one thing that a lot of people probably don't get about law enforcement is that a significant part of their policing efforts is to try and prevent kids from going down this path in the first place. So of course we see the news when someone gets picked up and arrested and charged and often ends up in jail for things like cybercrime, but what we probably see a lot less of is the amount of work that goes in from officers who are really, really passionate about helping kids make good decisions and not ending up like some of the folks you see online. And there's a few things in the pipeline that we'll talk more about later this year as well around that. Now, incidentally, the NCA in the UK has been very, very active in this for many years. And one of the materials that they created, I want to say it was almost about 2017, it's a while ago now. They did this really cool YouTube video around, what do they call it? Cyber paths, cyber choices. Anyway, there's this really cool video of this kid's parents sitting there explaining how smart he was to someone who's on the other side of the couch as they're having a very polite English, as they're having their tea and bickies. And, like little Johnny is so good at computers and he gets A's on everything and he has more money than we do. And little Johnny's starting to look a little bit sheepish. And then you turn the camera around and there's the NCA sitting on the other side, grilling the parents because obviously the kid has been hacking the cyber things. So anyway, point is they put a lot of effort into the prevention side of things. And that's, good on them for that. And like law enforcement, I assume in other parts of society, they're under-resourced, they're probably underpaid, they're very stressed, but they're trying to do something really useful. So that's cool. G'day, Richard. Aaron says Windows key, super key with the Pwn logo. Make a dream come true. Every time I press it, I end up another data breach. Saw a few more data breaches this week. saw news of. I've not actually seen these, but got up yesterday morning and a bunch of people had sent me stuff about KLM, the Dutch carrier, Dutch airline. So it looks like they have had a data breach that sounded very similar to the Qantas one in terms of, I think they said something to the effect of third-party frequent flyer reward program style data. So that would be KLM off the back of Qantas off the back of Hawaiian. And I do recall seeing some attribution there to scattered spider, which seems to often be used as a bit of a collective term. But they were in the news. Pandora was the other one. This is Pandora, the jewelry store. And the only reason I recognize that is both Charlotte and our daughter seem to spend a lot of time in Pandora, particularly any time we travel somewhere and they want another one of those little charms. So Pandora was in there, and it was only recently that Louis Vuitton was one of the names that was up there, and a couple of other designer brands too. So it's kind of been a who's who of data breaches this year. But now that I think about it, I've not seen data for any of those big names, which is interesting, because normally you see news about this and you're like, okay, and you sit there twiddling your thumbs, and then a few days later or weeks later, the data turns up. I've not seen that on any of those. And of course, if it does turn up for Qantas, we can't touch it because they've got an injunction over it, which I spoke about the other day. So anyway, same. More data breaches. On preventing data breaches, or preventing the impact of data breaches on individuals, this week we announced Guardio coming on board. Have I been pwned? My keyboard stopped working again. Why? Guardio has come on board, Have I Been Pwned, via our partner program. I've got to be careful when I say come on board, because sometimes I was like, hey, welcome to Have I Been Pwned, Guardio. And they're like, did they get breached? No, not that we know of, and certainly not in Have I Been Pwned. So Guardio makes some awesome tools to help prevent folks like myself falling for phishing and other scams. Where were they a few months ago? They've come on board our partner program facing the US market, and they're facing the consumers because they're on the breach pages and they're also on the consumer dashboard page as well. So if you log into your dashboard and you are coming from an American IP address, you will see Guardio product placement there. If you go to any one of the breach pages coming from a US IP address, you'll also see Guardio there. So they build a product that we feel will make a meaningful difference to people that are worried about data breaches, which should be all of us. And particularly when folks are on Have I Been Pwned and they just learn that, hey, I've been in this latest thing, and they're like, all right, what can I do? What are the actions I can take? Certainly using a product like that is one of the best things that they can do, particularly for falling victim for the likes of scams and phishing and everything else. Again, as I have aptly demonstrated myself quite recently. So big thanks to those folks. That's the I think the end for now of partners that we're going to add to Have I Been Pwned. What I don't want to have, and we've been very, very careful with the selection of who we want to work with, we don't want to have either organizations that are competing in the same space, and we also don't want to just have like a wall of different options. I mean, the last thing people need when they've just found they've been in a data breach and they're like, holy shit, what's all this stuff about data breaches, is to give them too many choices. So, I think we're doing well with the password manager and identity theft provider, and effectively endpoint protection in your browser with Guardio. So big welcome to those folks. Thank you for coming on board. Now, one little nuance off the back of that, let's go and get technical for a bit, is the breach pages. Dashboard pages, no problems. When you log onto your dashboard, nothing is cached because everything is customized to you. Breach pages, we're having a little caching issue that I have a ticket open with Cloudflare on at the moment. Here's how it works. If you go, I can't type, can I? Why can't I type? If I open a new tab, I'm sure Have I Been Pwned will be one of the recent things I've been to, and I can click on it. Yep, and we're good. Sweet. So we'll do mouse only here. If we go to Who's Been Pwned, and we go to any recent breach, let's go to the pie hole as the most recent one from last week, and we scroll to the bottom, you'll see a little bit of text. It says, the content on this page was tailored for, insert your country name here, and then you get your flag. So right now, being on my normal local connection, not VPN into another world, country, I'm seeing the content on this page was tailored for Australia. And what that means is, at the moment, I see recommended actions and I see a sponsored product placement for TrueU, which is our Aussie identity theft provider, part of the Commonwealth Bank. So that's great. If you go into your part of the world and you're not in Australia, you won't see TrueU. If you're in the US, you'll see Guardio. This is all fine. Now, in order to do this and cache this and make sure we serve the right content to the right people, we have a cache key, which is the country code. Now, Cloudflare makes all of this really, really easy to set up. So we've gone into our cache settings. We've gone, okay, anything under the breach path, we're going to cache by country. I just had an idea. Explaining things often helps you solve your problem. Anyway, we'll get to the problem in a minute. So we've got a cache key by breach path. And the challenge there is that we're now going to end up, so we've got a 24-hour cache expiry. So we're now going to end up effectively with, what, a couple of hundred different cached pages. They'll replicate across all of Cloudflare's edge nodes. There'll be one per country. Even though we really only, in fact, we're tailoring content for Australia, the US. We're also, because of TrueU and then the likes of Guardio, we're also tailoring content at the moment for New Zealand. I'll talk about New Zealand in a moment. And then there's everyone else. So we're really ending up with like 4 different versions of each one of the almost 900 breach pages. And they all sit there in cache, all have a 24-hour expiry. So every 24 hours, the cache will get what's the right word? It'll be purged, evicted. It'll be evicted from cache, go to the origin, pick up a new version. So if anything's changed, that's fine. And of course, we can always force purge from a path as well. We can literally just go into Cloudflare, purge from a path, or purge everything and have a been pwned, and it all clears out. That explanation said, the problem we're having is we've got Guardio not appearing on some pages for the US audience. And they reported this, and it's like, well, what do you mean? Like I'm VPN'd into the US, I see it, it's fine. And what appears to be happening is some Cloudflare edge nodes have got stale cache. And they've got stale cache to the effect of about a month. In fact, if you, I've got to right click into this because I can't control you. Right click, view page source, and we scroll down to almost the bottom line, 335, and there's some debug info in the HTML source that shows when this page was cached and the attributes that Cloudflare was able to capture of the inbound request. Now, what I mean by this is it's resolved the IP address to a city, a continent, a country, a latitude, a longitude. Now, this would be the ISPs, so this is not someone's personal geolocation data. Postcode, region, region code, and time zone. And we've put this debug info in there precisely for moments like this. So I can see on the pie hole the city of the IP address that made the request that caused us to be cached was Brisbane, which is our local city here. Well, other than the one we live in, the one major city that's closest to us. This was captured into cache on the, see, this is what's interesting. This is the 4th of August. UTC, but it's still the 4th of August. Why has this not been evicted from cache? Unless my browser was cached, so I'll give it a reload. I can't hold down the shift key and give it a hard reload because my keyboard's, oh, now, did it work? Maybe it did work. Let's view the source again. Let's see if that has updated. No, see, it's still the 4th of August. Why is it so? We have an open ticket with Cloudflare to try and resolve this, because the problem, of course, is that we've got people literally paying for product placement and it's not showing up on some pages. Now, of course, it will show up on any new breaches we load, and they're the ones that tend to get all of the exposure, but still, we want this problem fixed. I had a bit of a sneaky feeling there for a moment. It might even be related to case, because the caching, I believe, on Cloudflare is case sensitive. You can configure that differently. I have seen some references to like /breach with a capital B and /breach with a lowercase b before the name of the breach after that. But solving caching problems is hard. So caching and DNS, they're both painful problems. I'm sure Rich has gone through these before. So Ooh, I just lost my camera. All right, folks, you may still have audio. Oh, where did I unplug that from? You may still have audio from me, hopefully, but no video. So, as I explain what I've done, hold on. Now, this, unfortunately, has all been related to the various changes that I've made whilst trying to fix my Bluetooth. Here we go. Camera's coming back on. Ooh, yeah, there we go. All right, we should have video again in a moment. Oh, holy shit. Where do I begin with this? Why does it just feels like every tiny little thing that I have to deal with becomes a rabbit hole into something else. The rabbit hole with the camera was that I have this great Sony model name I've now forgotten because I got it years ago camera with a Elgato cam link that takes effectively HDMI out and then converts it into webcam. It's fantastic. And it's really like it's probably not the right word, but like a little mini DSLR camera. It needs power. So when I purchased it, I got effectively, like, it goes into the battery slot, looks like a battery, but is then powered to mains. And it's great because you just leave that in there and it's got constant power. It's got no actual battery. It's got like a battery emulator. And then sometime about a couple of years ago, for reasons I still don't understand, every time I was using that, I started getting noise on the microphone line because there's obviously some radio frequency interference or something, electrical interference, which was really annoying. So I ended up taking that out and then instead just powering it directly from the USB port. So putting the battery back in, powering it from the USB port. So I literally have a micro USB cable, which is not even properly fed through the conduit in the wall like it should be. But it runs around here and then it plugs into the PC. Now, because I pulled the PC out the other day to try and fix the problems with the Bluetooth and the keyboard, I had unplugged that, and then I was using that micro USB cable to charge something, and I didn't plug it back in and the battery went flat. That's it. So the lesson for me is that I need to plug that. I can still use a micro USB cable, that's fine, but I need to plug that into mains somewhere and probably run it properly through the wall. I'll add that to my endless list of shit I have not done yet with computers. Okay. Where literally were we? Cloudflare caching. Let me look at the comments. I think we're done with that bit. Andrew says, as someone who had a friendly nudge in the right direction from the police officer as an IT savvy teenager, 100% is an effort that needs to be promoted more. Yeah, hey, it's good to hear you say that. One of the interesting discussions yesterday, and what I will say, that I've said this many times before, the law enforcement agencies, particularly those in, let's call them the friendly countries, all work together very closely on initiatives such as cybercrime prevention in youth. And they share a lot of information. There's an event that I expect to be going to on the other side of the world later this year, specifically around this sort of thing. There's a lot of effort that goes into it. And it was interesting, the discussion I had yesterday with someone I catch up with at the AFP quite regularly. And she sort of said it's, when you think about crime IRL, let's say kids stealing cars or breaking into houses, it's very clear from the outset that this is an illegal thing. You ask any 13, 14-year-old kid, it's like, are you allowed to break into houses and steal cars? Oh, fucking a battery. Why it's done it again? It's just one of these days. All right. Turn off, plug in. You know what I'm going to do? Let's imagine you're on the podcast version of this show. And you have the audio, but you don't have the video. You're not missing much because the camera's just pointing at me, and you do have the audio. So I'm going to let that battery charge up a little bit and just talk, and then we'll turn the camera back in a few minutes. So yes, thank you, Altate. So still have audio. Yeah, and I can see that going through OBS, so that's fine. Sony a6400 is the camera that we're having the current problems with. So let me continue the story. So for kids committing IRL crimes, stealing cars, breaking into houses, if you go and ask any 14, 15-year-old kid, is it okay to do that? Like they'll know the answer. They'll know the answer. They'll also know the consequences. Conversely, you go and ask 14, 15-year-old kid, is it okay to DDoS an opponent in a game or to use a cheat? And I think they'll know the answer is I'm probably not meant to do that, but it's victimless and there are no consequences. And then they tend to be the behaviors that start people down the wrong path. And I think we've got to recognize that this, a little bit like IRL, is a path. You don't start out as some serious hardcore gangster. You start with something that is petty and you work up to it. So one of the challenges here is when we're talking about cybercrime for kids, it's very, very difficult for them to understand the legality or the illegality of what it is that they're doing and the consequences of what they're doing. And the point was also made yesterday that there's a very high relative proportion of neurodiverse kids as well, which makes it then even harder for them to think through the consequences of their actions. So it is a very tricky one for law enforcement. And of course, they are understaffed. I made the comment, and I don't think I got any pushback on this, that I would imagine that given that law enforcement in general always feels under-resourced, when funds are being allocated, they're going to be prioritized on the crimes that do physical harm, assaults, or crimes that are very traditional IRL-style crimes, robberies, all sorts of things like that. It seems to be especially hard to get funding for cybercrime prevention. And that's a real shame because it is something that is so prevalent to one extent or another. So anyway, that's that. Aaron, I have a question about your home network, Troy. You have like 6 gigabit internet. No, the most we can get here in Australia is gigabit, which if I'm honest, is more than enough for everything I do. It's very, very rare we would actually get gigabit throughputs because we either don't have enough simultaneous outbound requests from different devices that need all that bandwidth, or the resource that I'm downloading the latest data breach from, for example, just simply can't pump the data out any faster. So gigabit is pretty solid. So no, I don't have 6 gigabit. Is that so data load and have my phone loads faster, or is it to do with home automation or both? I'm a nerd. I just want as much internet as possible. Of course I want the fastest connection I can get. I'm on the NBN here in Australia. That's our national broadband network. I think everyone is now on the NBN. We have fiber to the home, which is pretty good. And then once we're into the home, it's a combination of Cat6 for all the new cabling. The house was pre-wired when I moved in here. It's going to be 10 years ago next month, I think, I moved in here. It's pre-wired, unfortunately, with Cat5. So that maxes out at, I think, about gigabit, which is fine for downloading things from the internet when your outbound connection is gigabit anyway. It's not so fine when I have a server rack, which has NAS devices and other things in it, and it has to travel over Cat5 between my PC and there. And part of all this upcoming houseworks, one of the things we're trying to do is actually get some fiber backbone, or at least Cat6 backbone, between the server rack and my desk. All right, let me see if I can turn this camera back on. We'll see if it comes good. We'll see how long it stays good for. Aaron says, I feel so much better now knowing that Troy Hunt has tech issues. I reckon I have more tech issues than most people. And the reason why is I've just got so much stuff in this house. Like, it is ridiculous the amount of stuff I have connected in this house. So the camera itself is back on, but it is not broadcasting the stream, which seems a little bit odd. I'll see if I unplug it and plug it back in again. Otherwise, I'm just getting to the point where I think the camera is going to be a write-off for the rest of today, and that will be that. What if I hide the camera in OBS and then turn it back on again? No, okay, screw it. We're doing audio for the last bit here, but we are approaching the end anyway. launching a reseller portal, this is kind of like equal parts the least exciting and most exciting thing at the same time. Now, I've lamented for years now the presence of resellers on Have I Been Pwned, largely because all they do, these are not value added. Why am I looking at the camera? These are not value added resellers. These are organizations for whom, let's say the Pfizers of the world, where I worked for so many years, when we wanted to buy a product, we couldn't just go and buy a software product. We had to go to SHI, Software House International, and purchase it through them. And then they, on your behalf, would go and purchase it from the company that I actually wanted to buy it from in the first place, but they have to sit in the middle and then charge extra money, which is just, it's all kinds of frustrating. And not so long ago, I had a big rant because it was something like 90% of our support tickets were related to resellers who accounted for about 4% of our revenue and only 1% of our total subscriber base. Like the numbers were just like astronomically irrational. And I even wrote the blog post. I wrote the blog post about that's it. Resellers are now banned from Have I Been Pwned. I put in graphs and charts and figures and I did everything and I was ready to push this out. And then I calmed down a bit. And mostly on the basis of the fact that there are so many people out there who were like me in Pfizer, who just want to do their job and they want to use this service because apparently Have I Been Pwned is a good service. And if we take that option away, they will not be able to use it. And that just felt sucky because we're trying to do everything we can to make it as accessible as possible to everyone, even those who've got idiot procurement departments who insist on paying more money because they can put it through a reseller that just makes life hard on everyone. Anywho, so what we have now done is we have built a reseller portal, part of the plan with this rebranded Have I Been Pwned and the dashboard feature, which people are already using to check their personal data, check their domains. Part of the rationale was to add a reseller portal where resellers could then do all the sorts of things they're logging tickets for, create quotes, create invoices, see their subscribers, all this sort of stuff. So that is in the final stages of testing right now. And what I mean by that is like Charlotte is sitting downstairs doing the final testing. And in the next couple of hours, I'm hoping to push that out. Unless you're a reseller listening to this, you won't see it. And that's going to be very unexciting for you. But what it will do for us after the inevitable teething problems, because as we've established, I have lots of tech issues myself. What it will do for us is massively slash the overhead that we're getting from tickets. And by slashing that, it frees us up to do a lot of other stuff, everything from writing new features to loading data breaches to creating more items in the merch store, which really does nothing other than make some people happy. But yeah, we've got a bunch of tweets this week with people receiving their merch and sharing the images of that. So yeah, we'll be able to do more of that. So it's kind of unexciting. However, it is going to get us back time. And time is an extraordinarily valuable commodity to us right now. Now, last thing, and every time I turn this camera on, nothing happens with OBS, so I think I'm just going to give up on that. Last thing was pairing dozens of Shelleys. When I started this live stream, I showed a box that was now almost empty. That the previous time I had shown it had a couple of dozen Shelleys in it. Now, all of these have gone into the renovated kids' bedrooms. And I alluded as I started this live stream that I was kind of losing my mind over things. I am losing my mind over renovations. The complete unreliability at this point in time of everyone, almost everyone, that we have dealt with in order to strip rooms. And when I mean strip, it's like literally all the plaster, the redoing framing, obviously carpets, everything repainted, bath, like everything. It's as full on as it can be. It has been going since we went overseas to Europe. How long ago was that? Nearly 2 months ago. It continues to go every day. The tradies coming and going. Dust, paint, interruptions, time slippages, excuses, angry emails. I'm so fucking over it. I'm absolutely. If the camera was on, you could see me crying right now. Anyway, as part of that, we are putting Shelleys behind every light switch. I did go down the path of trying to find other alternatives, potentially smart light switches, for all sorts of reasons I might write up another time. We are sticking with normal mechanical switches with IoT Shelleys behind them. Now, while we're in Sydney, the Sparkies come in and they have put Shelleys behind every one of these switches. So I came home from Sydney yesterday, went to the Wi-Fi networks on my phone, and it just scrolls on and on and on, because every single Shelley, when you first set it up, you first give it power, broadcasts its own access point. And one of the ways of pairing it to your network is that you connect to that access point, you load up the interface on a local IP address because it's got a little web server in it, and then you set the Wi-Fi network credentials, and then you let it restart, and it joins the network, and then it has an IP address, and you can set it up from wherever you are in your network, which is fine. You can also, with the second gen of the Shelley dimmers, you can also connect via Bluetooth. And I did just one of them yesterday, and I wasn't overly happy with the experience because it now seems to be like joined to Shelley's cloud, which has remote access, which I don't want, and you need to use the app. So anyway, my thinking is, and I'll put it to the folks listening to this first, and then I might put it in a tweet thread later on. If I've got, for the sake of argument, 24 Shelleys, and I want to join every single one of them to the network and apply some basic settings, should I just create, I could literally just create one curl script that calls the API on the Shelley to set the wireless access point details, set the Wi-Fi client details. I can also call a point on there, or I might even be able to do it with one request, to do things like set some basic configuration. So there's a few things I do with every Shelley, set it to automatically restore the state on reboot in case the power's cut. Should I just do that and then just connect to like 24 Wi-Fi networks one by one? And then one of the settings you can set as well is not only do you set the new Wi-Fi details, but you can set it to turn off the Wi-Fi access point and even turn off the Bluetooth. And then I just enumerate through each one of those. And then the fun, I'm air quoting here, the fun part is, let's say it's 24 Shelleys. I don't know which lights they're on. So I got to go through and toggle them and then see which light goes on and off. And then to make it even worse, some of them don't yet have the lights installed because we're still waiting for the lights to arrive. So there's going to be some Shelleys that pair and they're connected to the light switch, but they're not connected to a physical light. So the only way to test that is then to load that Shelley interface up, which shows you whether it has power or not, and then go and press the physical button and see if it toggles the digital state. If you can think of a faster way of doing that for 24 of them, because I feel like hours is going to disappear on this today, let me know. Al Tate's asked, how is CoinHive going? Mate, I honestly just haven't looked at it for a while. I know it still gets a lot of requests. I want to commit some time to actually doing some analysis of why is this still being requested so much. It's on the to-do list. Aaron found some good Yale locks you might like Yale Connexus. It has a British kite mark, so it's a third party tested to meet very high standards of insurance. Okay. We have some strict regulations in the UK. I sent some locks that may work with your sliding door. I feel like I saw that, and it was more like one of those bolts that could be automated. I think that's what. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. But look, what I would really like to do is find a proper first-party, deliberately designed for sliding doors lock solution. And again, to the best of my knowledge, that still doesn't exist. Hopefully it does by the time we actually get to doing even yet more renovations. And if I haven't topped myself by then, I will I will put those into the new house. All right, folks, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to let this battery charge up, and I'm going to find a proper permanent solution to this. I think I'm going to literally just wire that cable in through the nice conduit that sits behind my wall. I've got to pull the monitor off the wall and solve yet more tech problems. Anyway, folks, thanks for that. Sorry about the camera problems. I think you got the first half of me. You know what the rest of it looks like. I'll fix that for next week, amongst a gazillion other tech problems that I have in my house that I'm sure I'll have to deal with between now and then. Thanks, folks. See you.